Hey guys, LevelCap here. It's the final week of the current chapter for Battlefield 5, and if you complete this week's assignments, you will get the M3 Grease Gun. This is an American-made SMG available for the Medic class, and as far as the Tides of War assignments for unlocking this weapon this week, they're very easy. You can do it in no time at all. You gotta cap some points, spot some people, deal some damage, cap some more points. It's all pretty easy and basic. My recommendation for capping flags would be Conquest if there's domination somewhere available, maybe a private game, but really you're probably going to do it on Conquest for the most part. And then as far as spotting goes, Breakthrough with spotting flares, you can get it done in a matter of seconds. So those would be my recommendations for getting through that tree as fast as possible. The rest of it's pretty darn straightforward. Deal some damage to the enemy and you'll have this gun. And if you happen to watch this video later and you missed that unlock period, it should be available for company coin in the armory. Now the M3, similar to the Type 2A, seem to avoid some of the pitfalls of the recent 5.2 update, meaning the guns kill quickly or they have some decent benefits to them that make them fun to use. The M3, for example, is the only SMG in the game that has a 3-shot kill in close quarters. With a 30-round mag, this means you can actually drop quite a few people before you need to reload that magazine. The damage drop-off is relatively steep, so don't expect this gun to extend its range that far, but you can easily down somebody who's unaware or not moving at a medium range regardless. Now, of course, at a 3-shot kill, the weapon is balanced out by having a much lower rate of fire, 450 rounds per minute, certainly very, very slow. It's going to be less of a consistent killer than something like the Type 2A in close quarters, and it's also not going to have the same time to kill as the Type 2A, but it's still a good damage dealer. It's also more accurate, so you're probably going to land more of your shots on target, and even with a 30-round magazine, it has similar damage potential per magazine as the Type 2A, although I would argue you're going to land more shots with this. So I was able to consistently get triple kills with this weapon, even without needing to reload. Now, when it comes to the progression tree, the route that I enjoyed was left, right, and then left at the end. Basically, you can spec this weapon for going full hipfire if you go for the left side tree, which is very good. The hipfire on this weapon is certainly good. If you want to make it better, you can take advantage of that. But I feel like the weapon was good enough with hipfire in most cases, and I was going to ADS for those medium long range targets when needed most of the time. So I might play around with it a little bit more, but I felt like hipfire was certainly adequate. I didn't need to add any more into it. Now, the big thing you'll want to be aware of on this progression tree is a built-on suppressor, which you can get by taking the left side of the last slot on the progression tree. You have to take this instead of a recoil reduction. In my opinion, the recoil on this weapon is not very significant. It shoots slow enough that it seemed pretty easy to control, so for me personally, I didn't need it. And the suppressor is weird. You put it on, and you don't really notice a sound difference. In fact, from the first-person perspective, it's almost impossible to notice a sound difference. From the third-person perspective, it is a very, very nuanced difference. And community manager Adam Freeman addressed it, saying that this was something talked about among the dev team. The suppressor in real life really didn't sound all that much different, I guess, from the actual weapon. The difference was nuanced, so they went for a realistic audio effect instead of sort of the Hollywoodized audio effect. But one of the main benefits of using the suppressor in-game is that it will not show directional hit markers when you shoot your enemy, allowing you to be a little bit more tactical or stealthy in close quarters. This, in my opinion, is definitely worth the upgrade. It'll keep you alive a little bit longer, prevent your enemies from locating you a little bit quicker. I don't know how big of an issue it's going to be in the long run. If you're a good shot and you take your targets out quickly, then it might not play all that big of a deal. But comparing that ability to, say, recoil reduction, I think the suppressor is probably better. Now, personally, since DICE has taken so much leeway already with the realism factor in this game, The fact that they went for a realistic audio effect on whether or not the gun was going to sound suppressed seems a little silly to me. I think it would have been cool if they actually did make it sound significantly quieter. But again, that's just me. DICE is constantly jumping between design decisions based on realism as a reason or gameplay as a reason, and they've been very inconsistent on this throughout the development process. So anyway, if you do end up getting the suppressor unlock and you're not really noticing any sort of audio difference, well, you shouldn't expect your enemies to not be able to hear your weapon anymore. It's going to be, for the most part, just as easy to hear as before, but they're not going to be able to see directional hit markers. So if that's valuable to you, then get the upgrade. As for this weapon's overall place in the gun lineup, I'm happy that DICE has added some 3-shot kill guns to the game. Generally, this should be reserved for slower rate of fire weapons, as is pretty typical in most video game balance, but it's nice because it shows that DICE is expanding the tools that they're going to use to balance out weapons. Now, if they can just apply that to the rest of the guns in the game before this, and basically the Type 2A being a 5-shot kill with extremely fast rate of fire, then I think we'll have a bit more interesting weapon variety. Also, for anyone who saw the Twitter trailer for this gun blowing up tanks and launching enemy soldiers through the air, sorry to burst your bubble, it's not quite that good, but it is a good gun. I enjoyed using it and I'll continue to use it in the future. Is it going to beat out the Type 2A in terms of overall performance? Ooh, that's hard to beat. It can kill more people more consistently, but in terms of dropping people insanely fast, faster than any other gun in the game, well, the Type 2A's still pretty much got this gun and just about anything else beat. Now, you may have also noticed a slight variation on Conquest this week called Rain or Shine. This is an extreme weather version of certain Conquest maps, basically putting you into a nonstop snowstorm, a blizzard, a nonstop sandstorm, intense rain and fog on certain maps. It basically makes visibility worse than it was before, which for the most part is just a huge downgrade to a lot of the maps that already had difficult visibility. But in terms of using an SMG, it is actually quite a good environment for sneaking around, especially if you're not going to show off any of those hit markers while using a suppressed version of the M3. This could fare pretty well, but for overall gameplay, the extreme weather on these Conquest maps is absolutely garbage. And a lot of stuff on like Fiel was just basically extreme fog and blizzard giving airplanes total cover, and then you would just get bombed out of nowhere. You couldn't even see or hear the airplanes. And so it just made the whole experience way worse from that sort of interaction perspective. The other thing you'll really want to watch out for in the blizzard or the sandstorm is backlighting. DICE has got extreme backlighting when up against fog or smoke grenades, which is technically realistic, but what it does is it makes it so that one player can see the other player, but not the other way around. So if you've got a big bright environment behind you and your opponent doesn't, well, expect to get shot through a lot of storms and dust and debris and smoke, just even more than you were before. With this chapter coming to an end, we can look at the 4 weapons that were unlocked over the course of the entire Tides of War system. There was the BAR, the Type 97, the Type 2A, and now the M3 grease gun. Only 4 weapons. Granted, I will say 3 out of the 4 weapons are pretty interesting. I think the Type 97 is probably the least interesting of those 4 weapons, but otherwise they're all worth unlocking in my opinion. They're certainly iconic weapons, although the Type 2A was, I think, pretty uncommon to see on the battlefield. Granted, the M3 grease gun also wasn't particularly common in World War II. I think it actually saw more service, more action in the Korean War. And interestingly, this weapon was actually designed to replace the Tommy gun. And I guess some military videos showed it being significantly more accurate than the Tommy gun, but in reality it wasn't, which is pretty common for doing upgrades. Sometimes the upgrade for a weapon is significantly reduced manufacturing costs as opposed to a performance improvement. As for what's coming in the next chapter or when exactly it's going to start, we still don't know. We do know that there is a Pacific map that we're supposed to be getting in the near future that is extremely jungly. Maybe we'll get that while we're waiting for the next chapter to launch, something to hold this over between then and now. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching the M3 Grease Gun review. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to subscribe, leave me a like, and I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap signing off.